Almost forgot.
Oh, am I going to war or a circus?
What'd you expect? Black leather?
Guys, I just watched the final trailer for X-Men 97, and it is awesome. The show is awesome. This trailer is one of the best trailers I've ever seen. However, at the end of the trailer, there is a lighthearted moment of levity, perhaps, which is kind of throwing shade, a little bit of mockery towards Fox's X-Men costumes. I laughed at it. Today on CBR, we're going to discuss the origins of this line, what it's referencing, and where it's from, and the backstory behind it. This is kind of interesting.
They need hope.
The final trailer for X-Men 97 begins with a voiceover from Professor X, who remarks, "You were my first students, my family. I wanted you to be free to help build a world where mutants could be free. I wanted you to help build a world where mutants could live however they wish, safe and without fear." During this, viewers are treated to dramatic scenes like Storm descending towards Jubilee in her new costume. Later, Cyclops can be heard giving a speech about how every mutant out there needs hope. Storm adds that the X-Men should do what they do, which she says is to believe in each other. Now, at the very end of the trailer, Cyclops throws Cable a uniform, to which Cable asks, "Am I going to war or a circus?" And then Cyclops says back to his son, "What did you expect, black leather?" I laughed at this because this has been a long-standing reference to an irritating scene in the original X-Men movie that pissed me off back then, and it still hits a nerve even today.
You actually go outside in these things?
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
Now, fans always felt like that line was sort of mocking them, saying, oh, comic book costumes are stupid and silly. We're not going to put them in that. Of course, true X-Men fans like myself were always very irritated by that line because it referenced what we felt was comic book shame, not wanting to ever put them in their proper attire, instead being like, you'll never get that, you're getting black leather, and we're going to make fun of you for what you want. Well, X-Men producer Ralph Winter had made a comment on this controversial line back in 2020. When he was asked how much discussion went into utilizing the leather outfits instead of the comic book costumes, he said, "At that time, the production team did feel like they did a good job. We limited the amount of time in the wardrobes. Of course, there's a joke in the movie about yellow spandex, which was directed at the fans. It wasn't to irritate them, but to say, hey, we hear you. We understand what you want. We understand you don't like the idea of Wolverine being taller than 5'4". We understand you'd rather have everybody in the traditional garb from the comic books, but we also have to make a movie that reaches a wide audience to justify the budget." Winter went on to say, "The trick is to always bullseye the hardcore Marvel X-Men fan, but do it in a way that doesn't alienate the average moviegoer that might enjoy or start to enjoy these types of stories." Now, a lot of people have pondered that the reason they didn't put them in their comic book costumes back then was because of comic book shame. You see, people thought differently of comic book movies back then. They thought comic books heroes were silly, stupid, juvenile. Now, I had always wondered if it actually had something to do with the budgets at the time also. Now, the budget for X-Men in the year 2000 was $75 million, which was considered relatively high for a superhero film at the time. Now, you have to remember, superhero movies weren't as common as they are today, and studios were still testing the waters with the genre. But the X-Men did play a crucial role in demonstrating the potential for both critical acclaim and box office success with the genre, despite the fact that they outright refused to put them in their costumes. The fact that he also says we limited the amount of time for them in their costumes makes me think that the reason that those movies were the way they were and didn't represent the X-Men that we see in the comics or in the animated series now was largely in part due to budgetary restrictions at the time, but also maybe comic book shame? Anyway, that's it for today, and tune in next time for me to continue to investigate this mystery of why the Fox X-Men movies refused to put the X-Men in their costumes for nearly 20 years. We'll see you next time on CBR.